So I was glad to see that the Employee Retention Credit Program was made mention in the Taxpayer Advocate report that came out, talking about the issues that are in the program. Some of these figures are pretty common for what people have been seeing. The backlog when the moratorium was announced was, about 600,000 claims, with only 5% being over 120 days old. And then over 9 months later, so we're almost a year, into this moratorium, the unprocessed is doubled to over 1.3. I think it was like 1.4. Who knows if they actually know how many, because of they scanning these efficiently. 85% over 120 days old. And I think that the IRS made the right move in terms of them stopping the process, but there needs to be some kind of plan forward with how to deal with it. And that because there was no screening mechanisms in place with the 941X returns, there's no ability for them to sort between the wheat and the chaff on this program. And that's the problem that's happening, is you have these legitimate filing taxpayers who can't be distinguished from the illegitimate ones because of the way the IRS was requesting the information. And so although that they've made these, the withdrawal program is still open, there's these teasers about the voluntary disclosure program being opened again. I think just because these issues aren't at the forefront of taxpayers' minds, it's going to be hard to get people to participate in these programs for claims that have already been processed, because for a lot of those people, that money has already been spent. So really putting more into the withdrawal program would be good, giving tax professionals more resources to be able to have these conversations with clients for the pending claims. And I think pushing more into the tax profession and more education for the tax profession would be helpful for this, for the pending claims. And then, basically they need to have more transparency, which is absolutely the case. As a tax professional, it is deeply frustrating when you're involved in a process with the IRS and there's no clarity around timeframes of expectations. And when you have clients that are waiting for, what would be life-changing money for their small business, and you can't give them any kind of reasonable expectation of when that money is going to be coming to them or what they should expect, it reminds me of like a Dickens novel plot where the characters are waiting for this windfall of an inheritance to come through, not knowing when it's going to happen. That's no way to be able to run a business, especially the businesses that are qualifying for this program. The reason why they're qualifying is because they were beat up during the pandemic. And so they don't have the stamina most of the time to do any of these extraordinary measures like filing for a refund claim suit or anything like that, because they're already struggling businesses and that there's no mechanism for them to distinguish themselves really. Now, it was mentioned that you can file with the Taxpayer Advocate for assistance, but I don't know how much traction anyone's getting from that. Most of the professionals that I've talked to have not seen success there yet. That's a really hard position for our business to be in. And so I think these objectives that are stated here are good objectives. The IRS needs to continue to incentivize people to withdraw who were not eligible. They need to also incentivize people to file the amended returns to pick up the taxable income related to claims. They need to post general updates about what's going on with the backlog and estimated processing times. And honestly, we can read between the lines. The fact that they don't have this information, I think, means that they don't know this information. And then have the ability for ERC cases for the IRS to prioritize when the taxpayer has significant hardship and qualifies for tax assistance. This is something where I've heard of people doing applications, but at the end of the day, the IRS has decided that they just won't move. And so I don't know that a lot of people have been able to really use this who needed it. And then work with the IRS to ensure it has clear explanations and transparency when it denies an ERC claim by providing taxpayers with a written explanation consistent with their rights, and being able to, appeal those rights. I think that activity number 4 is going to be particularly important as we move into the next phase of this program once the IRS starts evaluating more of these claims. I think it seems like what the current plan is that they're probably going to be denying a lot of the claims that were in that 10 to 20% extremely high risk bucket, which we don't know what that constitutes. I assume it means, claims where when they do the cross checks of basic information that they appear to be fraudulent on the face of them, like, wild employee head counts or just numbers that don't make any sense compared to when you look at their historical behavior. But for people who are, the majority of the claims that are stuck in limbo here, they need to provide an easy pathway for people to come back into compliance, because I think there's going to be a lot of people who went through, people who are not licensed tax professionals, or, there's issues on the claim for one reason or another. A common one that I see is people who did filings for these claims, who they utilized like a payroll provider who just had them fill out a questionnaire, and the payroll provider didn't do any of the due diligence related to the complex eligibility rules, mostly around the government shutdown mandates. And so you have taxpayers where you need to provide a way for them to come back into compliance in an easy way, especially for these pre-processed claims, if there's some kind of mechanism for those to be corrected proactively, especially when the IRS reaches out for additional information on those claims, because I think that is going to be a decent sized population of people who are eligible for the program, but maybe not eligible for quite as much as what was filed for. And then you do have the other population of completely, legitimate eligible businesses that went through, credentialed tax professionals who, had the work done correctly. And those people need to have a pathway to get processed efficiently. So I'm glad that this was highlighted. And, I was actually hoping for a little bit more detail and a little more of an aggressive stance here, just because when you think of the population of businesses that are being impacted by this, and also that the character of those businesses that were able to apply for this that are being most impacted are ones that were beat up, because that's how you qualify for the program. So some thoughts there. And for anybody who hasn't checked it out, definitely do. This whole report is completely fascinating as a tax professional, all the statistics in here and just performance metrics of the IRS. It's nice to get an inside view on, kind of what's going on at the IRS, priorities, performance metrics, things like that. Very interesting.